Hello, and welcome to the dark room, the place where the shadows come to life and the things that go bump in the night are all too real. Today I'll be your guide through the twisted and terrifying stories that we have in store for you. From spine-chilling urban legends to bone-chilling ghost stories, we'll explore the darkest corners of the human psyche and leave you trembling in fear. So, turn off the lights, grab a blanket, and get ready to enter the dark room. Shadow Stalkers, the never-ending hunt. It was a dark and stormy night, the kind of night that makes you want to stay inside and never leave the safety of your home. But for me and my friends, it was the perfect night for a little adventure. We were a group of 5, all of us in our early 20s and full of energy. We had heard about a place deep in the woods where people claimed to have seen strange shadows moving around at night. Some said it was just their imaginations playing tricks on them, but others swore that something sinister was lurking in the darkness. We decided to investigate for ourselves, so we packed our bags and headed out into the woods. As we walked deeper into the forest, the trees became thicker and the shadows grew longer. The wind howled through the branches, making it difficult to hear anything else. We walked for what seemed like hours, until we finally came to a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a large tree, its branches twisted and gnarled like the hands of a witch. It was then that we saw the shadows moving around the base of the tree. At first, we thought it was just our eyes playing tricks on us, but as we got closer, we could see that the shadows were real. They were humanoid in shape, but their features were indistinct, like they were made of smoke or mist. We watched as the shadows darted around the tree, their movements fluid and graceful. They seemed to be hunting something, but we couldn't see what it was. As we watched, the shadows began to converge on a single point, and we realized that they were hunting us. We tried to run, but the shadows were too fast. They surrounded us, cutting off our escape. We could hear them whispering in our ears, their voices cold and menacing. One of my friends tried to fight back, swinging his flashlight wildly at the shadows, but it was no use. The shadows simply absorbed the light, becoming even darker and more powerful. We were trapped, and we knew that we were going to die. But then, something strange happened. A beam of light pierced through the darkness, illuminating the shadows and driving them back. It was the first light of dawn, and the shadows couldn't survive in its glow. They dissipated, leaving us alone in the clearing. We were battered and bruised, but we were alive. We never went back to that place again. But the memory of that night has stayed with us. We never forgot the terror of being hunted by shadows, and we never underestimated the power of the darkness again. Sometimes, late at night, when the shadows grow long and the wind howls through the trees, I still hear the whispers of the shadows in my ear, and I know that I am never truly safe from the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of the light. After that terrifying night, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something had changed within me. I became more aware of the shadows that followed me, always lurking just out of sight. It was as if the experience had opened my eyes to a world that I had never known existed. I tried to put it behind me, to go back to my normal life, but the memory of the shadows haunted me. I started to research and read more about shadow hunting, trying to understand what we had witnessed that night. It led me to a small community of people who claimed to have had similar experiences. They spoke of the shadows as if they were a real, tangible threat. They told stories of how they had learned to hunt the shadows, using special tools and techniques passed down from generation to generation. At first, I was skeptical. It all sounded like something out of a horror movie. But as I delved deeper, I realized that there was more to it than just superstition. These people were serious about their craft, and they had the scars and bruises to prove it. I started to learn from them, attending their meetings and practicing their techniques. I learned how to use light to drive away the shadows, how to move silently and invisibly through the darkness, and how to sense the presence of the shadows even when they were hidden from view. As I became more skilled, I realized that I wasn't just hunting shadows to protect myself. I was doing it for all those people who had been terrorized by the darkness, for all those who didn't know that there was a way to fight back. And so I became a shadow hunter, dedicating my life to protecting others from the darkness that lurked in the shadows. It wasn't an easy path, and there were many times when I wondered if it was worth it. But every time I saw the relief on someone's face when I drove away the shadows, I knew that it was. Now, years later, I still remember that night in the clearing. It was the moment that changed everything, that opened my eyes to a world beyond the safety of the light. And while the shadows still follow me, I know that I am not alone. I am a shadow hunter, and I will always be ready to face the darkness. It had been months since my last encounter with the shadows, and I had started to believe that maybe they had given up on me, but I was wrong. One night, as I was walking back to my apartment after a late shift at work, I could feel the shadows following me. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there, lurking just out of sight. I quickened my pace, hoping to outpace them, but it was no use. They were always just a step behind me, like a predator playing with its prey. As I turned the corner onto my street, the shadows seemed to grow bolder. They started to swirl around me, enveloping me in a shroud of darkness. I could feel their cold, clammy touch on my skin, and I knew that I was in trouble. I tried to remember the techniques that the other shadow hunters had taught me, but my mind was blank. I was frozen, paralyzed by fear and desperation. And then, just when I thought all was lost, I saw a glimmer of light in the distance. It was faint, but it was enough to give me hope. I ran towards it, knowing that it was my only chance. As I got closer, the light grew stronger, and I could see that it was a street lamp. I collapsed under it, gasping for breath, and watched as the shadows dissipated in the glow of the light. I sat there for what felt like hours, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with thoughts of what could have happened. I knew that I had been lucky this time, that I had narrowly escaped the clutches of the shadows. But I also knew that I couldn't keep running forever. Sooner or later, the shadows would catch up with me again, and I needed to be ready. And so I continued to train, to practice my skills, to hone my senses. I knew that I couldn't let my guard down, that I had to be ready for whatever the shadows had in store for me. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I felt like giving up. But every time I thought about that night on the street, about how close I had come to being consumed by the darkness, I knew that I had to keep going. Because in the end, the shadows may be powerful, but they are not invincible. And as long as there are those of us who are willing to fight, who are willing to stand up to the darkness, there is hope. Months passed without any further encounter with the shadows, and I began to believe that they had finally given up on me. But as time went on, I realized that it was just a temporary lull. The shadows were still out there, waiting for their next opportunity to strike. One evening, as I was walking home from a friend's house, I felt their presence again. This time, they were more persistent than ever before, following me relentlessly through the streets. I tried to shake them off, ducking into alleyways and hiding behind parked cars, but they were always just a step behind me. And then, Just when I thought I couldn't run anymore, I saw a familiar face in the distance. It was one of the other shadow hunters, a woman who had taken me under her wing and taught me everything I knew. She was holding a lantern, and the light from it was driving away the shadows. I ran towards her, and as I approached, I could see the relief on her face. She had been hunting the shadows that night, and had stumbled upon me by chance. Together, we fought off the shadows, using our combined skills and knowledge to drive them back into the darkness. And when it was all over, we sat down on the curb, catching our breath and sharing our stories. It was then that she told me about a secret group of shadow hunters, a society of people who had been fighting the darkness for centuries. She told me that they were looking for new members, and that she believed I had what it takes to join their ranks. I was hesitant at first, unsure if I was ready for such a commitment.